South Africa will take on Australia in the first World Cup game for themselves, and obviously they're hoping to get a win, hoping to get the campaign on a good start. After two successful warm-up games, South Africa is going to look to try and show what they're capable of against an Australian side. And Australia are one of those teams that we are not so sure what we're going to get with them in this particular tournament, from my opinion. That's in my opinion at least. But we'll see what the other panelists have to say on the show today about this particular game. Now, we have provided you guys with a link to call in on the show. We will be taking calls towards 15 minutes into the show. We'll be taking calls from the fans to hear what you guys have to say. First and foremost, we'll obviously chat with the panelists and see what they have to say about this particular game. So I'm really excited about this one. I hope you guys enjoy this episode and you give your guys thoughts in the comment section, in the live chat. That's where you guys need to do all your chatting. But before you get going, before we get started, don't forget to click the eye on the top of the screen or in the description to get the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics magazine. Every single issue is 100% free, including the World Cup edition. Also, if you're new to this channel, click subscribe, click that notification bell as well for all future videos. Now, let's get straight into the preview of the first game of the World Cup. Let's get it. Hey guys, welcome to Cricket Fanatics magazine. This is your preview show. I'm your host Khalid, and this is my co-host Aditya, and we're joined by Hano as well. We've got someone waiting already in the back end. We've got Dev with us. Welcome to the show, brother. We haven't spoken to you before, but at least this is going to be insightful. Let's get straight into it. I'm going to go around the screen over here and discuss everybody's thoughts on this particular game, because given that we've come off for warm-ups that I feel that South Africa were tested in both categories. You know, with the ball they were tested quite well, and then again the chasing ability was tested as well. So let's have a chat about this. Do you guys want to have a chat about first Australia, or do you want to go first with South Africa? I think personally I would like to go with South Africa first, and then we'll go around the room. I would really like to hear what your take is. So Aditya, let's start with you. Seeing that the game will be played in Abu Dhabi, of course, as well. Somewhere that we're now too familiar with regards to the pitches and the environment. And we know that it's going to be hot. It's going to be a day game as well. We heard Lunkin Gidi speak about it earlier on, the difference between playing a day game and obviously a night game. Talking about the dew if you're playing a later game, of course, and coming into play in the evenings. But what's your thoughts on South Africa? Before we go into the actual team selections and what we think will happen with team selection, let's just first hear your overall thoughts of South Africa and if you feel that they are favorites for this particular match.
Yeah, it promises to be an interesting game. Abu Dhabi has probably been one of the better wickets for batters, and I personally think that South Africa will have an edge over Australia, because the game is going to be played in the day when it's going to be really hot and slow and dry. So I think South Africa are better equipped to deal with those conditions compared to Australia. Australia haven't really been at the top of their game, certainly in T20 cricket over the last couple of series. They struggled in the Caribbean, they struggled in Bangladesh, and they didn't do well in the warm-up game against India as well. So I think they're lacking momentum. But then, you can never underestimate an Australian team at a World Cup. Somehow something just brings out, the quintessential Australian competitiveness in them. So I guess South Africa would be advised not to be complacent against a struggling Australian team. But I think South Africa are marginally ahead of Australia at the moment.
Now, I know I'm going to come to you because I'm going to start with the preparation heading into this World Cup. I'm sure you've read the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics magazine, where The likes of Dwayne Pretorius, Keshaf Maharaj, even Calvarena weighed in on certain concepts with regards to South Africa from a mental perspective, as well as preparing themselves for the conditions that they are looking to face in the UAE and Dubai, etc., and all of those, in all the venues that they will be playing. Do you feel that South Africa, with regards to the series leading up to this particular World Cup, as well as the warm ups, do you feel that they prepared themselves as best as possible for what they're going to be facing in this particular tournament?
Yeah, thank you, Khalid. I appreciate that. Look, there's always going to be two aspects when it comes to a World Cup tournament for South Africa, and until that monkey is off the shoulder. And this monkey has grown so big now that it now applies to any type of ICC tournament, whether it's a T20 or an ODI type of tournament. And let us just quickly get that elephant out of the room. Um, Regardless of the preparation, as good as it has been in the past, for the amount of times that South Africa have been one of the favorites, if not the favorite, going into a tournament, that is not um, so much of a factor, um, coming down to the fact that we need to break that hoodoo. I think for South Africa specifically, to answer your question, yes, our preparation has been pretty much on par. I think all the administrators and all the support staff has done a great job. And I also want to commend Graham Smith for the ability that he had to construct such a good warm up schedule for us leading into this tournament. Be that as it may, you know, the proof is in the pudding. And one thing to add about that is, who better to start out with than play against that very same team where our hoodoo has always been going to be contested, if you want. So since the first opening match in 1992 of the World Cup, 7 World Cups has come and passed, and no silverware has been given, with absolutely no correlation between how good South Africa was going into the team as favorites or as the top three, or as hosts, or whatever the case may be. But what I want to mention is that for the first time in a very long time, if not the second time, only after that opening match in 1992, in 2019, the one very little positive thing we got out of that tournament is to have an emphatic victory against Australia in an ICC knockout tournament, which might seem relatively not as big for the rest of the world, but from a mental perspective and from the 7 preceding World Cups hoodoo perspective, that monkey on the back was broken to a degree with regards to Australia only. So going into this particular match on Saturday, I think we would like to feel that we are bullish, but cautiously, very cautiously guarded in terms of, shall we say, our chances going into it. What I want to say specifically on the T20 format is, when it comes to spinners, Australia has never been a factor for South Africa, particularly with the likes of Adam Zampa, who has got relatively good success against other teams, but has been um, largely unsuccessful against South Africa. If they are going to um, field him as one of their main bowlers during the middle part of the innings, I think they will play into our hands. Our brittle batting lineup has now galvanized to a degree where most of the players that are supposed to carry us there has now actually gotten out of their slump. The likes of David Muller, and of course, Quinton de Kock is still out there, hoping to get out of his slump very soon. But what is very encouraging is to see that our top order, at least one or two players, are starting to pick up their hands now that we understand that we are not going to bat down to number 8. Thank you.
Okay, so Dev, you next, but I first want you to obviously introduce yourself to the fans because I would like them to know a little bit more about you, and then I'd like to ask you a question. The question will be about Australia, who South Africa have to look out for, and particularly how do they combat those danger men that you pick out?
Hi, sorry. Can you repeat the question?
So the question is, first of all, just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. And then second of all, can you just let me know who are the danger men in South Africa's in the
Right.
Australian side, and how do South Africa combat those danger men?
Right. So, first of all, I'm glad to be part of this eminent show. Thank you for having me over. I write for a living, and sports is something I'm very passionate about, especially cricket, especially Proteas cricket. And I started a website on 2nd May 2017, which goes by the name of Correct Point. So we have a dedicated section called Protea Fire, which is goes without saying, which is dedicated to South African cricket, the updates, not just restricted to the developments in the men's game, but as and when and as insightfully as we can cover developments about the women's team as well. So that's pretty much about me. Huge cricket fan, and one more thing which I may want to, which I'm happy to share is that I started the website on the birth anniversary of a batsman who really took South Africa to the cleaners sometimes, Brian Charles Lara, 2nd May. But I think it was his presence that made these contests very enlightening in those days. Now, coming directly to the question, there are a couple of batsmen who I think the South African bowlers may find a bit hard to negotiate with. One of them is actually Glenn Maxwell for sure. It's not a huge speculation to make, because I think Maxwell. I think the world media, in a way, has been a bit under appreciative of the man's great comeback. Because let's not forget, 15 months back, in the day, he was actually struggling for his own survival in the game. He was down with depression, and the fact that he made a staunch comeback and the way he hammered bowlers out of the park, especially in the first phase of the IPL, which was conducted for some reason in the midst of the COVID pandemic in our country, India. It was fantastic. The second batsman, I think, who has a huge point to prove to himself first, and then to his nation for having faith in him, is the often undersung, the very confused Mitchell Marsh. I call him confused because he has all the ingredients to just smack the bowlers out there. But it is only of late that he has started to show his true potential. He was very, very dangerous in a couple of T20 encounters against the West Indies in the Caribbean recently. And I think he will hopefully have a huge part to play for Australia. But coming back to the team which we root for and we support, I think there is no reason why South Africans do not enter the game as favorites, if not clear favorites. And there are three underlying reasons for it. Number one is that they are fresh from a series victory in the Caribbean. And I know that it is back in the past now, but this is a team which had not visited the West Indies in over a decade of time, with every single player playing there for the first time. Correct me if I'm wrong. And they won it. They defeated the defending champions, who have been hammered, by the way, by the Pakistanis and the Afghanis. And this is a bit of a shock to the rest of the world. So, if South Africa can score a series win against the defending champions in the format in which they are about to hopefully excel, there's no reason to doubt their capability. And the other factor is that I think, as a captain, uh, Bavuma has certain things to prove, and he will be helped by a very strong core, the likes of which will be spearheaded by Quinton de Kock and Rassie van der Dusen, who's just fresh off a fantastic century. And I mean, look at his strike rate, 198. What more can we ask from the right-hander?
Yeah, exactly. Now, Aditya, I know you've been watching Glenn Maxwell closely. I think a lot of us have been. He is one of the danger men, of course. But with regards to Australia, Steve Smith as well in that setup, you never know what you're going to get with him. But when it comes to South Africa, I mean, my first thought process would be three spinners: play Keshav, play Tabrez, and play the likes of Bjorn Fortuin. That would be my first instinct to do so. Currently, we're not 100% sure if Tabrez is going to be fit for the first game. I hope that he is, because South Africa is really going to need him. He obviously went off the game with a little bit of a groin strain. He was feeling a little bit of tightness in his groin. They were assessing him yesterday. They assessed him today. They haven't updated us yet to let us know whether he's 100% fit or not yet, but hopefully he is. But Aditya, do you go with the same sentiments at Abu Dhabi? It might, by then the pitches might be a little slower than it was at the beginning now. And we're hoping that it's going to get a little bit of turn, because from what we heard from Lungingidi in his presser, what we heard from David Muller is that it's going to turn a little bit as the tournament goes along. And that he actually misheard your question that you asked him. And so there's a consensus within the camp that's going to spin on these wickets. So are you thinking of playing the second all-rounder and going full out with two both Andrich Nokia and KG every game? Or are you thinking that we need to have an extra all-rounder maybe and then an extra spinner as well?
Personally, I'm a bit wary of three specialist spinners in the team, just because of how long the tail would then become. And given that it's going to be difficult conditions for batting in the day, I think South Africa need to have as much batting resource as possible at their disposal. But since slower bowlers are likely to dominate proceedings, I think Keshav and Tabriz would start in the 11, and Aiden Markram could certainly chip in 4 overs as well. It's big ground. Abu Dhabi is a relatively big ground, and the Australians would have to put in a significant amount of effort to deposit even Aiden Markram out of the ground, because he's been bowling quite consistently in the last series or two. So that would be my preference. So yeah, I think I would focus on ensuring that the batting is as well resourced as possible, as opposed to including the extra bowler.
Okay, so I'm going to get the first caller on the show. Before we go, Anna, with you, I just want to hear what the first caller has to say, if they are available. How's it, Carl? Are you there to chat? I would like to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, how are you guys doing?
Good, and you, man?
Okay, are you gonna ask me a question, or am I gonna speak for myself?
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you first and foremost about the lineup. When it comes to South Africa's batting per se, the top 6. Let's just talk the top 6. Who do you think will be in your top 6? Who would you like to see as definites in that top 6?
I think opening wise should be Markram and De Kock, and then at 3 I think it should be Temba. I don't think Riza should play. 4 should be Rossi, 5 Miller, and then 6 Henrik Klaasen or Dwayne Pretorius. But personally, I would rather have Henrik Klaasen at 6.
That's actually okay. So that's similar to mine. Actually, I would actually go be personally with Dwayne Pretorius. I'm not really happy with Henrik Klaasen's form currently, but I get why you pick Henrik Klaasen at 6. When it comes to the spinners, and you've seen the way Bjorn Fortuin has performed, you've seen the way Keshav Maharaj has performed, and they kind of are looking at to be the second spinners or the third spinners in the team. Do you play all 3 against Australia, or who are you a little bit wary of in the Australian side?
Who I am worried about in the Australian side?
Yeah. Who are you worried about?
Adam Zampa has looked good while he was bowling, and Marcus Stoinis, like his first game back, he scored 41 off 20, which is very good. And on his day with the ball and the bat, he can do a lot.
And with regards to spinners, do you think we should play all 3?
Yes, I think we should play all 3. Shamsi, Fortuin, and Maharaj.
Okay, that's excellent. And your prediction for the game, let's just get that in straight away.
I think South Africa will win. I hope we win, obviously.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot, Carl, for coming on the show. Thanks a lot for calling in once again. We'll speak to you again very soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Okay, so interesting points there, Arno. Saying that you would like to see a switch over there for the openers, for example, Aiden Markman opening instead of Temba Bavuma. I would like to get to know your thoughts on the top order. What is your thoughts on South Africa's top order? Because especially with Temba, because what I've seen is they could possibly be, and what I've seen on social media as well, on some of the posts that we've written, some people have accepted that Temba can be that, you could say, I don't like to use this word in T20 cricket, but the anchor in the team that can bat through the innings and support the attacking batsman on the other end. How do you see Temba's role in the side, and do you agree with Carl on moving Temba maybe to 3? You just muted.
Yeah. Thank you, Khalid. Firstly, what I'd like to say is I resonate very well with Aditya in saying that we should ensure that we bat as deep as possible. By the same token, to answer you and your question, our captain is Temba Bavuma, okay? And sometimes captains are leading from the front and sometimes they are out of form. It's a bit different in cricket than it is in other sports where the best player in the world can sometimes not be leading from the front due to his form. We saw that with Virat Kohli and with Steve Smith, and who's to doubt their credentials by the same token. The type of player that Temba Bavuma reminds me of is not that much different from Jonty Rhodes in the sense that he's an accumulator. He's a Michael Bevan type of player. So when you are saying that he could be playing an anchor role, I suppose that could be one of the. It could be part of what he's doing. By the same token, we don't see him play a lot of sixes, same as Jonty Rhodes, and but what I think is sometimes, and you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, Aditya, especially for those who understand T20 cricket very well, the IPL experts would tell you that rotating the strike, especially during a time when there's a tight spell of bowling going on, is just as important as allowing the right rotation and the likes of people to excel. By being bogged down, it's almost like a deer being caught in headlights. And Temba Bavuma has that ability, which does not translate into the stats when a team is bogged down, when you've got a Sunil Narayan on the one side and an Obed McCoy on the other side, two of the best exponents in the game, pinning down the deer in headlights. Temba Bavuma is a great exponent to rotate that kind of strike. Now, I'm not saying he's only good for that. What I am suggesting is that Temba Bavuma has got his strengths, and it's not in hitting big sixes. Okay, let us be clear on that. Like Jonty Rhodes, the same situation. And let us be clear on that. His value will not always translate into the stats. Okay, as a Protea supporter, I can firmly tell you that in the change room, the players play for their captain, and there's absolutely none of the talk or even the thoughts present that some of our doubters out there might have. So that's my rendition of Temba Bavuma. But specifically on the batting lineup and in correlation with Aditya, what he mentioned, I still like to see Aiden Markram up there with Quinton de Kock. Quinton de Kock to be able to express himself, but to be anchored by either a Bavuma or a Markram. So to me, it's neither here nor there if Markram is at 3 or Bavuma is at 3, but those are the top 3, according to me. Then going down to Rassie van der Dussen, who needs to have a little bit of time to get himself in, and then he's able to produce his best type of cricket. Yes, we had uh, David Muller, who was going through the worst slump of his career. But let us not forget, when looking at his total track record, what he brings to the team. He has that one ability to hit a six from the second or the first ball, same as Lars Kusner in the last over when you require 19 runs. Great example of that was last night. Not sure if for the viewers who did or did not see that, but that was not an easy shot. That was from his ankle. It was 5 centimeters from a Yorker delivery, and he hit that ball for a six as if it was nothing. And that is what David Miller brings to the team. I don't want him to be down too low, But it is, so I'll put him down at 5 or 6. And by the same token, coming down to the all-rounder discussion, one has to look also at the character. Um, a player like Jadeja comes to mind. A person that's got some fight in him. You can see things didn't always go his way, but it molded him into a player that excels when the going gets tough. I want to say mongrel. The mongrel factor must be present in our team. And Jadeja, I hope he gets perceived as a compliment. But the mongrel factor must be present, and you've got that with Dwayne Pretorius. Don't let you know the 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 sharp looks deceive you. He comes from a very poor upbringing. He comes from a hard place where nobody plays cricket. He had to fight 3 times harder to get into the team versus a normal player who's from the normal system. And look at his credentials in T20 cricket. He's excellent in terms of bowling and batting. We need a good all-rounder to balance our team out. I'll play him at 6 or 7, and we'll pray for Quinton to fire. But at least we've got a little bit of faith that 2 or 3 of our guys can come good. We saw that it's possible with a good total against Pakistan last night.
So, Dave, if you were the coach and you had to give the instructions to South Africa at the beginning of this match on how they should approach it, yes, okay, conditions come into play, etc. But we almost know what Australia is going to come with whenever they walk out into the field. They're going to leave everything on the field. That's just generally speaking, and they're going to try to get under your skin. That's always the case with them. There was an article that was recently written by Brett Lee. It's a column that we also shared on cricketfanaticsmag.com, where he speaks about that. He speaks about how he likes the fight between Australia and South Africa and how resilient both teams are, etc. But when it comes to South Africa, what instruction would you give to the Proteas with the current setup that we have?
I think they should just go out there and honestly express themselves and just play it as if play for the fun, play for the enjoyment, because the quintessential Protea spirit comes through and strikes the right chords when they actually play as one, and they actually do that when they go out there and enjoy themselves. I would just want to rewind the clocks a bit and go back further into this discussion that we're having when Hanno said the 2019 World Cup and the last victory that they had of the tournament was against Australia. That was a very, very significant moment, albeit in different circumstances, because they had nothing more to lose. That was not the best South African campaign, and nothing was going right. Why? Because one after another, there was one injury after another. I clearly remember the 2019 World Cup where I think the great Hashim Amla was felled by a Jofra Archer bouncer, and Faf made 100 of those 325 runs, which South Africans mightily compiled. But those were different circumstances. We have to remember this team is cliche that it may sound. It's like a new springboard, it's like a brand new canvas. The familiar talents are around. The famous trinity, I would say, of Keshav Maharaj and QDC and Kagiso Rabadas, 3 of the most experienced players. But you have some sparkly youngsters, who have been exposed to the rigors of international cricket. Yes, there have been some strange selections, personally speaking, and I know I'm digressing from the point. For example, I don't know why Faf is not there, why George Linder is not there, right? But the essential core that we have is something which can give a tough fight to any single team out there. And this, as once again, as what Hanno said, somebody like Dwayne Pretorius, you don't take such talents lightly, and if you do so, you do that at your own peril. This is a guy who actually has a 5-er in T20 internationals. I think his best bowling figures are 5 for 17, if I'm not mistaken. So probably just go out there and play for the fun of it, because the true South Africa comes through when they go out there and express themselves and enjoy cricket. And regardless of what has happened in the past 1.5 years, specifically speaking, where there were so many issues and difficulties, all of that is behind them. Just go out there. It's a new day, and again, cliched as it may sound, just enjoy the cricket, because it's like you can, when South Africa really play as one, it's almost like seeing a herd of lions being unleashed from the cage. I'm not even kidding. That's the feeling that they evoke in the hearts of the true Protea fans. So that
I
would be my
love.
only advice.
I love to hear that. Love to hear that. We've got a final caller. We've got Ravi. Ravi, I know you've heard everything that was said over there. Just give us your thoughts on that, particularly Dwayne Pretorius. Now, in his exclusive with Cricket Fanatics magazine, you guys can go check that in the exclusive interviews on the channel. But he spoke a lot about how he's modeling his game. He said with the ball, he's going to try to model someone like Dwayne Bravo. And with regards to the bat, he's somewhere in between something like Russell and Pollard. He said there's certain aspects of Pollard that he likes to take, and there's certain aspects of Pollard that he of Pollard that he would like to take and add to his game. And he also spoke a lot about having a plan A, B, C, and a D, not just having one plan or two plans to fall back on. So your thoughts on Dwayne? Do you feel that he can be that catalyst for South Africa if we're in trouble, take us out of trouble, and also with the ball maybe do something to stifle the opposition in the middle overs, etc.?
Yeah, thanks. I think he has to, because chances are the paces in the beginning might get carted all over the ground. So I think Dwayne has to improvise a little bit, and it's refreshing to hear that he's going to change his attack somewhat, because he's not really known for his variety of slow balls. And if he's trying to mimic the likes of Dwayne Bravo, kudos to him, but good luck to him as well, because Bravo, I believe, has got about 6 varieties of slow balls. Right? I mean, Aditya is the greatest Chennai fan of all time, so he'll probably attest to that. But I think if Pretorius is working on that, great. We need to see that kind of variety. I know that the Twitterverse in South Africa, at least, they explode every time Rabada doesn't bowl a Yorker, or for that matter, any of the other bowlers on within the team roster. So I'm glad. I'm glad that Dwayne is working on his game, because those are sort of the fine margins we need to sort of work on. Those are the sort of varieties we need to perfect in order to really remain competitive in this tournament. And, I wanted to actually say another thing, that, for weeks, we have a tendency as South Africans to bash South Africa in terms of the selection. The omission of Faf du Plessis is obviously a very contentious point, but we must just remind everyone that our record, T20s wise, for the last 12 matches at least, has actually been optimal. It's been about, I think, a 98%, 97% win rate. So 10 out of 11 or 11 out of 12, I think we actually ended up winning the bulk of our T20s this year, which is almost unheard of, because T20 is something of a foreign concept for the Proteas camp for a while. And I think we finally got some good momentum on our side. Yeah. So that's my 5 cents, Khalid. Thank you.
Excellent. Now, let me just get you, before you leave. I think you can stay until the end. Let's just get your thoughts on Australia. What you think Australia is going to bring to South Africa, and also just give me your prediction, and then we can go around, and then we can go from Dev, Hano, and then end off with Aditya for your prediction for the match on Saturday.
Okay. So Australia, I know that they're kind of almost been written off by the cricketing world when it comes to the T20 side of things. But I think we often forget that that's one trophy that's not in the cabinet for Team Australia. So I think they are certainly hungry. The team, the players are certainly more than capable. For me, the guys to watch out for in the Australian camp, at least, is Ash Turner and Adam Zampa. I think they're definitely going to improvise. They're definitely going to provide something of a competitive factor as far as that team is concerned. And obviously, on a side note, David Warner, I know that he's been almost like the whipping boy this last year, especially considering his bad form with Hyderabad. I just have a sneaky suspicion. I think Dan Osman called it out on Twitter the other day that if you keep on roasting David Warner leading up to the match, he might actually bash 60 of 20 balls against us. So I don't want to coax the guy any further than that, because Dave always brings out some superb performances against the South African camp. So look, it's hard to say, man. You remember 6 overs on the power play, anything can happen. Once you conquer or get on top of a side in that 6 over power play, anything can happen, so we just have to wait and see, I guess. It is the opening game after all. I think Australia aren't going to hold any punches.
Okay. Prediction, Dev, and then Hano, and then Aditya.
You want me
Thank
to
you,
go
Khalid.
first?
Okay, so from my side, I just respectfully disagree when it comes to, and this is a controversial, and I know not everybody likes this. I've got a lot of respect for Australian players, but I agree on David Warner. I think he is a definite dark horse. That he's not so dark as he is just a looming nuclear bomb to explode. I think it's pertinent specifically to South Africa to remember his first T20 when he annihilated South Africa. I think it was 88 that he hit against a very good South African side. By the same token, and I'm going to go with characters who excel when the going gets tough, when there's pressure, versus just being themselves. I'm talking about an extra factor of a tournament pressure, the history of South Africa and Australia, and that all of that coming into the field, because we will kid ourselves if that's not the case. This is the third factor every time South Africa will face South Africa in a tournament. And on that case, I believe Glenn Maxwell and Marcus Stoinis and also the likes of Adam Zampa will be found wanting. And don't be surprised if David Warner is excelling. Okay, for all his TikTok antics and all his stupid sledges, nonsense that he did in the past, he's still that player. He is still that player that can win the match. It will not be Adam Zampa, not be Stoinis, not be Maxwell. And for us to counter that, we need 2 or 3 players to fire, because the going will get tough and David Warner will get going. And we need 2 or 3 to match and exceed that. My prediction is that South Africa probably will win this match, but it will be very close. It will be coming down to the last over, just purely because of the extra pressure and the history created. And 1 or 2 players will put up their hand for South Africa. And don't be surprised if it is Dwayne Pretorius or Rassie van der Dussen.
Cool. Dev?
Yeah, I think hopefully South Africa are going to get over the line. But I have 3 main predictions, and these are just predictions, so for sure. And this is like the most unpredictable template of the game. So number 1, I think the most runs to be scored from the South African stable will come from the top 3. And a huge part in that will be played by hopefully the left-hand, right-hand combination of Quinton de Kock and Aiden Markram. Second, Keshav Maharaj would be the most economical bowler. And number 3, South Africans could be in for surprise by all thanks to Josh Inglis, because this is a key pick. This is a player which is highly rated in the domestic circuit. None of us know what he's capable of doing. Is he just a pocket rocket figure, or is he like a dynamo? We don't know that. So the first game is going to be a bit of a revelation, but South Africa are going to get over the line, and I support Hano. It's going to be a close call. But I just feel that the team which bowls the least number of extras is going to hold the automatic edge. And that's something I've seen the West Indians struggling a lot with, because I follow South Africa closely, I follow West Indians closely as well. They tend to lose the margin of their defeats is basically the number of extras they end up bowling. So So the team which actually concedes the least amount of extras. So it's like, every penny saved is every penny earned. Every extra goal less is every run saved. So it's just going to come down to those fine margins.
Hannah and Dave have spoken about much of what I wanted to say, and they've been quite conservative in stating that South Africa is likely to win, but it's going to be a really tight game. Therefore, I'm going to be a bit more emphatic in my prediction and state quite categorically that I think South Africa is going to give Australia a proper hammering, and they're going to come out trumps. I think South Africa are a more complete team at the moment compared to Australia, and I think Australia will rely as much on their skill as they will on their past reputation in ICC tournaments. But unfortunately, it can only get you so far. I think players to watch out for in Australia, my view would be Steve Smith. The UAE game, the UAE template, I think is perfectly suited for his game, and he's the kind of guy who could bat 20 overs and be very dangerous for South Africa. So I feel like Steve Smith is he's very underrated T20 player. Remember, he's also got an IPL 100 to his name, and he's led the Pune Super Giants to a final which they lost by 1 run in 2017. So that man is a very underrated T20 cricketer. But in saying that, I think players like Maxwell will be dangerous. Mitchell Stark is coming back into some sort of rhythm, and Mitchell Marsh has been in good form. And if he bats at number 3, he could be quite a handful. For South Africa, it'd be good to see Quinton de Kock return to some kind of form. I'd love to see Themba Bavuma make a few runs at the top of the order. I think Australia's pace will help him. He likes the ball coming onto the bat, and I do think that Aiden Markram will have a solid game. And David Miller has a solid record against Australia, and I think he'll come good tomorrow. So Ravi Miller time's coming, mate.
So I'm gonna end off over here by saying I think that Australia is going to face some coast of sandpapers past, and someone like Aiden Markram, someone like Quinton de Kock, someone like Kagiso Rabada is going to want them, and that's what's going to. I think that's going to be very difficult for them to face. And the spinners, the way they bowl together, I think they're going to be a handful. And if Australia can get through that, then they deserve to win the match, I feel, because that's the South Africa strength at the moment. Quinton de Kock is waiting, I feel, for a big one, and it always comes against Australia. He always performs against Australia, so I'm really hoping that he can do so. Maybe not in this particular format, but generally speaking, whenever Australia comes knocking, Quinton de Kock sends them back home. So thanks a lot for everybody for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to go to Cricket Fanatics Mag and download the latest issue. It's 100% free in this description and as well as the eye. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Click the notification bell for all future videos. Smash the like button so that we can get into recommended feeds, and share this with all your friends and family. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow with another daily show. Take care.